Rejoice! The Hollywood pedocracy has given us yet another award ceremony where virtue-signaling celebrities can name-drop social justice rhetoric and cue the audience to clap on command as they lecture the world, us unwashed masses, us normal working people who don't really understand the problems in the world as well as these celebrities do, where they can lecture us on how we should live, what we should do with our bodies, and how we should eat. Right? So Joaquin Phoenix was given a golden idol for his work in The Joker. Right? Now this is not a hit piece on Joaquin Phoenix. I don't hate Joaquin Phoenix. In fact, I feel pretty bad for this dude. We'll get into why. Let's hear what Joaquin's got to say. Let's go through his acceptance speech and we can make some critiques as we listen. I'm not going to be able to show the whole video, but we can listen to it.
I'm full of so much gratitude right now. And I do not
look at his eyes.
Elevated above any of my fellow nominees or anyone in this room because we share the same love, the love of film, and this form of expression has given me the most extraordinary life.
Okay, so he doesn't feel above anybody in that room. None of the social climbers, Hollywood celebrities that are in this room. He doesn't feel above any of them. But funny how he doesn't mention us, the unwashed masses, who he's about to preach to. Right? He doesn't feel above Leonardo DiCaprio. He doesn't feel above, who else? Roman Polanski and whatever other degenerates are in this crowd here. He doesn't feel above them. But does he feel above you and I?
I don't know what I'd be without it. But I think the greatest gift that it's given me, and many of us in this room, is the opportunity to use our voice for the voiceless.
All right, so the opportunity to use our voice for the voiceless. Okay, not so bad so far. What is he talking about here? Who are the voiceless? Is he talking about all these kids getting passed around on the casting couches of Hollywood? Is he talking about the children who are being treated very, very poorly, right, to say it nicely, in Hollyweird, in this pedocracy of Hollywood? Is he talking about kids like his former co-star from Stand By Me, or his brother's former co-star in Stand By Me, Corey Feldman, talks about child abuse, we'll say, being rampant and one of the biggest problems in Hollywood. Is he talking about that? Is he talking about victims of human trafficking? No. He's talking about chickens, crickets, and cows. He's talking about the mean, nasty, naughty farmers. He's talking about the animals that all the naughty, nasty farmers are abusing out there. And he uses the word voice for the voiceless, and he's actually referencing, I'm pretty sure he knows that he's referencing them. He is referencing this group, Anonymous Voice for the Voiceless. You can see their really cool logo right there. The kind of square and compass looking logo. And what is this group? Well, they stand around with Guy Fawkes masks, not understanding the historical significance of Guy Fawkes, the gunpowder plot, and or any of this. They stand around with these Guy Fawkes masks and show slaughterhouse footage to people walking on the streets. And they're giving a voice to the voiceless, right? Because apparently the animals want them to be advocating for them. All right, let's go on.
I've been thinking a lot about some of the distressing issues that we are facing collectively. And I think at times
All right, so here it is, the distressing issues that we're facing collectively right now. Anybody who's watched this channel long enough, if you've checked out the stream I did with Jay Dyer, Clubbing for the Climate was the episode. We talked about the Club of Rome, the book, The First Global Revolution, where it forms what they call the world problematique. Right? This world global problem, they postulate in this book, will require a global solution. And they decide in this book that the problem would be climate change, global warming, and the like, because this would make humanity itself the enemy. And so on page 75 of the Club of Rome's First Global Revolution, they have an infamous quote about humanity itself being the enemy. And so this global problem requiring a global solution is a ruse that has been used time and time again to make nations fall into line in order to control human behavior. What these people are essentially pushing is a depopulation agenda. They want to reduce the human population, the Club of Rome. And it's funny that we see so many celebrities constantly pushing out this same rhetoric about all the global problems. The media is constantly telling us about these problems, right? You got the evil dictator Saddam Hussein. You've got the nasty, naughty Taliban, right? You've got Iran. Oh my goodness, you got Muammar Gaddafi. Big, bad, tyrant dictators. These are global problems. They're creating problems and instability in the region, and we've got to go in there with a solution. Now, the new war is not on Saddam Hussein. The new war is not on Muammar Gaddafi. The new war is not against the people of Libya or Syria. The new global war is against the human population in general. And this war is waged on behalf of the big money interests who fund all of this, who fund mass media, who fund these magazines, these television shows, and who push their agendas and the worldview that they want you to have via this media.
Feel, or we're made to feel, that we champion different causes. But for me, I see commonality. I think whether we're talking about gender inequality or racism or queer rights or indigenous rights or animal rights, we're talking about the fight against injustice.
So indigenous rights, queer rights, women's rights, it's the same as animal rights, right? Because we're all just animals. Right? So Joaquin Phoenix over here saying that women, what do you say, queer people, they're just the same as animals. Just like that PETA ad said, right? Just like RZA said in his PETA ad as well. We are all the same. Yo, bon bon, yo, Wu-Tang is for the children. We are all the same, yo. Right? This message is consistently being pushed to form your worldview so that you believe that you're just a beast.
The fight against the belief that one nation, one people, one race, one gender, or one species has the right to dominate, control, and use and exploit another with impunity.
To say this in this room, how ironic.
From the natural world, and many of us, what we're guilty of is an egocentric worldview, the belief that we're the center of the universe. We go.
How ironic to be saying this in this room. This egocentric worldview. You guys all have too much ego. All you unwashed masses out there, you think you're the center of the universe. You think you are so important. But you're just the same as a rat. You're just the same as a cricket, he's telling you. Just like PETA says.
The natural world, and we plunder it for its resources. We feel entitled to artificially inseminate a cow. And when she gives birth, we steal her baby, even though her cries of anguish are unmistakable. And then we take her milk that's intended for her calf, and we put it in our coffee and our cereal.
So this is the biggest problem in the world, guys. Mother cows are being separated from their calves. Their calves are being stolen, and their milk is getting jacked. Right? First of all, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. So we've got 3 cows. Our milk-producing cow that's producing milk right now, who we milk each day, once a day. We separate the calf from the mother. And let me tell you why. If you don't separate the calf from the mother and control when they feed and make sure that they get enough milk, very often the mother will either reject the calf and not feed it, not give it any milk. This happens very often. They'll kick, they won't let the baby suckle, or other cows will come and take all the colostrum and take all the milk. Now we've got 3 cows. One of them is less than a year old. I think she's like maybe 9 months old right now. The second and third day after this calf was born, this little bull calf that we have here, we noticed that if we didn't separate the yearling from the milk-producing cow, that the younger cow would take the milk that was there for the calf. Right? She would dry her up. So other animals will drink the milk of the cow if you don't separate her, and she can reject the calf. So the reason they are separated It's not because people are so mean and we want to steal their milk. These animals are bred to produce 3 to 4 times more milk than a conventional cow. Right? So non-dairy cows do not produce very much milk, yet dairy cows produce quite a bit of milk, a lot extra. That calf is not able to consume even half of the milk that the mother produces. Right? So this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, has no idea that we separate the calf so that that calf can live. We separate the calf so that we make sure that that calf can grow up healthy and can get enough milk. Now, he talks about artificial insemination. Now, artificial insemination is not done everywhere. Here where we live, up in the mountains of Ecuador, artificial insemination is a little bit more rare. There are people who do artificially inseminate their cattle, but it's pretty rare. Ours were not artificially inseminated. But the reason that big producers very often artificially inseminate their cattle, and small family farms do the same very often, is because cows can actually incur injuries during breeding. You ever seen a bull? You ever seen how freaking massive and violent bulls can be? Well, the breeding process, unlike the human breeding process, can be very violent, can be very destructive, and the cows can get injured. Major injuries and even death can occur from it. This dude is completely disconnected from the process of the production of food. He talks about in his Vanity Fair article here how he'll crush bags of chips, how it's all good. He tries to eat healthy, but then he steps outside for a cigarette after guilt-tripping the guy who's interviewing him about not being vegan. Completely disconnected, completely hypocritical, and complete nonsense.
And I think we fear the idea of personal change because we think that we have to sacrifice something to give something up. But human beings at our best are so inventive and creative and ingenious. And I think that when we use love and compassion as our guiding principles, we can create, develop, and implement systems of change that are beneficial to all sentient beings and to the environment.
So there you go. So systems of change that are beneficial to all sentient beings. Oh, we're so creative. You're not going to have to sacrifice. You can just eat the Beyond Burgers. You can eat the Impossible Burgers. You can eat the George Monbiot and BBC promoted lab-grown industrial slop that Lord Birkenhead wrote about 100 years ago in his Cosmopolitan article, in his social engineering article, predicting the future 100 years ahead. Right? I gotta shut up. Let's listen to the rest of this.
Now, I've been a scoundrel in my life. I've been selfish. I've been cruel at times, hard to work with, and ungrateful. But so many of you in this room have given me a second chance.
He says he's hard to work with. He's been a scoundrel. It's so funny because the movie that he's getting an award for right now, the people who worked on this film said he was incredibly difficult to work with. It was so hard to work with. The people who were doing his makeup, the crews, said this dude is near impossible to work with. Completely self-absorbed, completely narcissistic. Yet he's here virtue signaling about, oh, I bettered myself. I used to be bad. Now I'm good. Come on, buddy.
And I think that's when we're at our best. When we support each other, not when we cancel each other out for past mistakes, but when we help each other to grow, when we educate each other, when we just when he was 17, my brother wrote this lyric. He said, "Run to the rescue with love, and peace will follow." Thank you.
So that's the end of the speech. That's the end of it. Something that's really important to understand about mass media, mass communications, television, and Hollywood is that it's not just there for entertainment. These films, these television shows, these magazines, these are not just there to entertain us. These are there to do more. These are there for social engineering purposes and for actually formulating your worldview. When you see persistent, repetitive images of children being shown to you in unwholesome ways, right? Hypersexualization at a young age. When you're repeatedly shown this, you do start to take on some of these traits. Right? Anybody who's raised kids sees that when your kids get into a new environment with new social influences, they very, very quickly will take on the mannerisms of the behavior and the worldview of the people that they're surrounded with, right? Which is why we're always advocating for families, right? For building real communities and disconnecting from this nonsense degeneracy that's being pumped at us through mass media, through television, and now through social media as well. And now, River Phoenix is Joaquin Phoenix's brother. He actually died in front of his brother in front of his brother Joaquin. Horrible, terrible accident happened at the aptly named Viper Room, which was owned by Johnny Depp at the time. So his brother was one of these kids that was actually put in very sketchy situations, let's say, at a very, very young age, right? They were obviously being handled by producers, agents, all these people who were helping them get jobs, and of course their parents, who raised them in a sex cult run by a guy named David Berg. Their parents were no strangers to, let's just say, childhood abuse, which was rampant in the Children of God cult, which is now called the Family International. So River Phoenix actually was hypersexualized at a very young age, became kind of a star, a sex symbol, before he was even 18 years old. River was actually a big influence on Joaquin's so-called activism. River used to wear PETA shirts. He used to be very proud that they were vegan. But it's really sad to see kind of River later in his life as he was getting into drugs, and the symptoms of malnourishment are there. Right? Now, of course, the heroin and cocaine use, speed use, this can manifest kind of the same physical symptoms as malnutrition like we see in vegan populations, but it's sad to see these kids traumatized and abused from such a young age and being blasted out there for kids now to look up to emulate. Right now, the River Phoenix phenomenon, it's pretty old. This is when I was like 5, 6 years old that this all went down. But these things imprint on people's consciousness. Like, I remember when I was a kid watching the film Stand By Me and hearing the story about River Phoenix and just, thinking how sad this was. Right? And we see this kind of repeating over and over again in Hollywood. Right? Going all the way back to like James Dean, the live fast, die young mentality that gets promoted for specific reasons. For specific reasons of social engineering, right? Keeping us in a perpetual state of adolescence and of childhood, making us all feel like we're broken and abused and afraid. This has utility for social engineering and for behavior modification and control. There's a reason why they turn all these Disney starlets into essentially prostitutes ritualistically through media. The Marilyn Monroe back in the day, Jane Mansfield. Modern day, you've got Madonna, then you had Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, then Hilary Duff, and Miley Cyrus. Right? Several of the ones that I just named, Miley Cyrus being a so-called vegan activist as well. We are given these images, we are given these idols for a reason. And what we consume physically is pretty dang important, but also what we consume through our eyes and our ears with all this mass media propaganda, with all this degeneracy being pushed on us through media. This affects us. This affects us deeply and profoundly. So we reject all this nonsense. I reject Joaquin Phoenix's narrative about dairy being abusive. We drink dairy every single day. Look at this. I got a big bottle of whey right here I've been sipping on throughout the day. And with my dinner tonight, I'm going to have some fresh yogurt cheese, and it's going to be delicious. You can find more at primaledgehealth.com. Remember, you're way more than what you eat, guys. So get off the dang social media. Kill your freaking television. Cancel your Netflix subscription. Get out there. Create real relationships, real communities, and live your life. Forget about all these fake celebrity phonies out there pushing nonsense and virtue signaling about social justice points that they're getting for selling their souls. See you guys next time.